Hey, what's up everyone? How's it going? Med Nation, what's going on? This is the video where I'm going to talk about the primary and secondary application tips, the way I organize myself, the way it was helpful for me, keep things organized, keep myself good to go, make sure I was applying early, making sure that all my information, all my essays, everything was nice and organized. So I'm going to go over these tips and hopefully it'll be helpful for you all when you're going through the primary and secondary application. Starting off with the primary application. So for those of you who don't know, the primary application is the first application that you're going to send with general information that all medical schools are going to receive. Now, this is kind of similar to the common application that you went through with the undergrad process. So in the primary application, you're going to talk about have essays to talk about 10 experiences that were I think it's 10 experiences that are meaningful to you. And you could choose any experiences, but it's ranging from volunteer, research, shadowing, any experiences that you feel like was formative in your development as a pre-med student. So in order to keep all these things organized, what I did was I kept a file of all of these things on an external flash drive. Now that external drive had a folder where I had a clinical shadowing and experience folder, essays in general, so essays that I used throughout the process, extracurricular activities, my personal statement, research experience, everything that I knew that I was going to talk about throughout the process. So let's just go to my extracurriculars, for example. So one of my extracurricular examples was I was a resident assistant in college. So in my resident assistant file, I had information about experiences that I had, things that I thought I was going to talk about, short stories to go over, and then also the contact information of my supervisor, because that information you're going to have to put into your application. So you want to have all that information already down and ready to go for when it's time for you to enter that information. So while I was going through certain experiences, I made sure to put down the contact person, their email address, their phone number, because I knew that that was something I was going to have to submit when it was time for me to submit my application. I didn't want that to hold me up from applying early, because applying early is really important. That's another major key throughout this entire video, so apply early. But I want to make sure I had all that stuff ready to go, so I kept a file of all those things, description, and their contact information. So another thing that I had on here was information about some of the things that are a little bit more specific. So clinical experience, for example. So when I was going through different clinical shadowing experiences, I would keep a log of different patients I interacted with, the things that I learned in each clinic day. And I feel like that was helpful because you're going to be asked about what it means to you to be a doctor and some of the different clinical experiences that you've had. So you want to make sure that you have it written down somewhere, those experiences that were really important to you in shaping what it means to you to be a doctor. So you want to make sure you have that written down somewhere. And same thing, like I said, with the other documents I had, you want to make sure you have the contact information of whoever you were shadowing, your clinical experiences. You want to make sure you have their email address, phone number, the hours that you did it, because you're going to have to submit the amount of hours that you did in each experience. So you want to make sure that you have your hours listed as well. So another thing that I had was my research experience, as well as other extracurricular leadership things that I had. Again, like I said, just makes it super simple and easy when you have all that stuff in one location, so you can just look at your document, look at your folder that you have, and then read what you need and then put it into your application, so that way you can have everything good to go quickly and you can apply early. So that brings me to another important point, which is when you enter your grades into AMCAS. AMCAS is the application service from the AAMC, the Association of American Medical Colleges. So that's where you're going to send in all your stuff to apply to medical school. That's the application service. So when you put in your grades, you want to have a copy of your official transcript, and that's because AMCAS has to go your AMCAS application has to get verified by someone at the AAMC, and they want to be able to look at your official transcript that they have and then look at the applications you submitted and easily verify, make sure everything is good to go, everything is accurate. And it's important that you have the course description exactly the same as what they're going to look at, so that they can easily look at it and quickly go through it. That's one of the most commonly things that hold up the application, is your grades or the transcript not matching what was into AMCAS, be it course description or what have you. So it's very important that that matches and it's exactly the same. So after you've submitted all of that, you submitted your transcripts, your grades, obviously all your demographic information, you submitted your extracurriculars and your hours of all of those things. Obviously your personal statement is going to go in there, so you should definitely make sure your personal statement is good to go by the time you're ready to apply to medical school. So now is the time you wait to get back secondary applications. So your secondary applications are the applications that schools are going to send to you, which has specific questions that they would like to know about you. It might be about why do you want to go to their specific school, or they might ask you to talk about some of your service experiences. And unfortunately, again, you are going to also have to talk about some of the same things that you talked about in your primary application. So you make sure you have that document saved of your primary application. I saved my AMCAS application in my drive, and then also obviously all the things that you talked about in your primary application. Another thing to include to make sure you have when you're doing your secondaries is also again, you want to copy your transcript, because sometimes you do have to enter in your grades again. Makes it really easy when you can just read off your transcript and then enter it into their system. So that brings me to the secondary application. The secondary application, it's recommended that you send it back within a reasonable amount of time. Some say a week, some say about 10 to 15 days. You want to make sure you send it back, because the secondary application is needed to complete your entire application as a whole when applying to different medical schools. So what I did personally that was really helpful for me is I created an Excel spreadsheet. And I'll show you this Excel spreadsheet that I made, which was helpful for me to keep everything organized. So in the sheet, I had the medical school that I was applying to, each school that I was applying to. I applied to 10 or 11 schools. I had the email address of each one of those schools, because I want to make sure that was saved under a contact, so that all of those email addresses were specific to those schools and it didn't get lost and get filtered out as junk or spam. I had the application website, so each school has its own secondary application website. So you want to make sure that you have that website saved so you can easily access the website when it's time to do that. Each website then has its own username and password. So that's why it becomes really important to have the Excel spreadsheet, because you want to make sure you have your username and password for all the schools that you're applying to in their secondary application service. So that way you don't get anything lost and you don't have to try to figure out where to find that information to apply. Then I submitted an invite date. And that was the date where I was invited to complete the secondary application. And then what I factored in was I want to complete mine in about a week to 10 days. So I put this into the Excel spreadsheet, coded it in here, so that way it automatically calculates how much time I have to complete the interview. And then I just hid these columns, so that way they weren't in the way when it was time for me to submit this stuff. But then it left me with a days left column, and that tells me how many days I have left to complete the application. And this just allowed me to visually see how many days I had left, so I can, prioritize the ones that were coming up soon. Then once I submitted it, I put the date that I submitted it to show that I was done with that application. I made sure I put the fees associated. Secondary applications can add up. I only applied to 10 or 11 schools, and I spent over $1,000 applying to these schools just on secondary applications alone. So make sure if you're eligible for a fee waiver, you take advantage of that, because it definitely gets expensive, and that's not even including what it costs to send all my primary applications out. So it's definitely a costly process. It's an investment, because you want to be a doctor is what you're passionate about, but that money will be only a drop in the bucket in terms of investing into your medical school education. So don't get too hung up on that. Then once I finally got interviews different places, I had a column for interview date, so that way I can make sure I have my interview date lined up so I can plan out, prepare for my interview. If you haven't already watched the video where I talked about how to prepare for your medical school interview, I made a video of how to pack for your interviews and dress for your interviews. So check out those videos if you haven't already done that. Finally, once I get into a school or get denied from a school, I keep it in this column here, so I could put if I was denied from a school. Hopefully that doesn't happen too often, crossing my fingers, but it'll show up red down here to show that I was denied. If I get accepted at a school, I type in accepted, it'll light up green, excited, happy, got accepted, which is awesome. And then also I'll have a wait list thing that I can type in, and same thing will happen with the wait list. So this is what I use. I feel like it's super important to be organized throughout this entire process. So main things to take away from this video: if you haven't already, make sure you start writing down your experiences, the contact information for the people who you are working with, and get that stuff organized so you're ready to go and you can apply quickly and go through that process smoothly when it's time to fill out your AMCAS. Then the next thing I would say is make sure you save all that stuff in a document and keep it going and keep updating that document throughout. If you write an essay that's asking you about your experiences in medicine, then save that essay because it'll help you jog your memory when you have to write it for a different school. And then once you've done, while you're doing that, doing your secondary applications, make sure you have it in a nice document, Excel spreadsheet. I liked a lot, whatever document works well for you. So you have everything organized, have your username, password, dates, fees, everything. Because you want to make sure, like I said, you apply early, ready, prepared, and you're good to go when it's time to submit that application. Then you get to sit back, relax, and then finally wait for that interview, which is, like I said in the other video, super exciting when you get that. But that's my advice on applying to the application services, primary, secondaries. Leave a comment if you like the video below. Make sure you give it a thumbs up. That's it for me. I hope this was helpful for you, and good luck with filling out your applications.